So you're thinking about buying a house, but you're not sure if your credit score is where it needs to be to qualify for a loan. Survey shows that only 1 in 4 Americans know their credit score, and some don't even understand what a credit score is. In this video, I am going to introduce you to my preferred mortgage broker, Josiah Burdge. He is with Anchor Home Mortgage, and he will walk you through the details of what makes up your credit score. 5 steps to an excellent credit score, and what credit score is required for you to qualify for a home loan. If you stick with us till the end, he will share a real life story that you do not want to miss, and we're going to get to it right now. If this is your first time to my channel and you want to know everything about moving to Georgia, the good, the bad, and the ugly, subscribe below and hit the bell for notifications so that you will be the first to know about current market conditions here in Georgia. My name is Hasna Pierce, your local realtor, and I get emails and text messages and phone calls every single day from people just like you looking to make a move to Georgia, and I absolutely love it. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, shoot me a text, send me an email, give me a call. All of the information is in the description below so that I could help your move to Georgia smooth and easy. Now, let's get into it. Here is Josiah Burdge, a mortgage broker with Anchor Home Mortgage. And by the way, this is the best explanation ever that I have seen on how to get an excellent credit score. Here's Josiah.
Did you know that 1 in 4 Americans have no idea what their credit score is? Well, if you're thinking about making a big purchase like a car or a home, you've got to know what your credit score is and how it's being calculated. So you're ready to make a big purchase like a car or a home, and somebody says to you, well, are you sure your credit's good enough? And you have no idea if it is or isn't. Let's figure out what exactly makes a credit score. It's a number, but what exactly does it mean? What are the different variations? What are the brackets? How do you know what a good credit score actually is? Well, the easiest way for me to explain this is going to be by breaking down in the different tiers. Now, once you cross over that 580 threshold, you're going to actually move into something called fair credit. That goes from 580 to 669. Now, past 669, from 670 to 739 is actually considered good credit. That's where most Americans actually are, with an average credit score of 711. Over that 740 mark is going to be very good credit, from 740 all the way to 799. And that last tier, over 800, that is excellent credit. If you've got over 800, there are so many options, doors open for you everywhere to make sure you can get the best deal anytime you've got to go and borrow money. Now, you may be thinking, yeah, I know exactly where I'm at. I've got this app on my phone. Maybe it's Credit Karma, maybe it's Experian, and it tells you that you're at a 680 and you think you're in great shape. Well, I hate to break it, but that might not be exactly what your true credit score is. Now, the important thing to remember, your credit score is derived from an average of the 3 bureaus that report on credit: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Now, when you go to check for something like a home, what's going to happen is the mortgage company is going to pull your credit score from each of those bureaus. It's not going to be the same as the FICO score that you maybe see in your app. We're going to go straight to Experian, straight to Equifax, straight to TransUnion, get each of their individual scores, and we're going to take the middle score of those 3 to use for decision making. Now, why is that important? Well, the higher your credit score is on that middle score will determine what kind of interest rate you can get, what kind of closing costs you're going to get, maybe if you're eligible for credits from your lender. It makes your loan cheaper, especially on a mortgage. The same thing if you're looking at a car loan. Just remember, the higher your credit score, the less it will cost you to borrow money, which is super important on big purchases. So we know where our credit score is at. We figured it out from the 3 bureaus. You're looking at this number, trying to figure out, well, what exactly factors into this? Great question. There are 5 things that factor into your credit score. Number 1 is going to be your payment history. This is going to carry the heaviest weighting at 35% of what makes up your credit score. Second is going to be the balances that you're carrying. How much money are you borrowing against how much money you can borrow? That's going to make up 30% of your credit score. The next one is going to be the history or the length. How long have you had credit for? That's going to carry a 15% weighting on what makes up your credit score. Fourth is going to be the credit mix. There's 4 different types of credit, and your mix in what you have of those different types on your credit report will also have a 15% weighting on your credit score. And finally, new credit. That's going to have a 10% weighting on what makes up your overall credit score. New credit is really just simply how often are you applying for credit, having your credit run. The more you're doing that, the more risky it may look from the eyes of a lender. So remember, payment history, balance, length of credit, credit mix, and new credit. Let's dive into each of those a little bit more. So number 1, payment history. This is the heaviest weighting on your credit score. And quite literally, this is just the ability of how often you pay things on time. Now, the way that a company is going to report that back to the credit bureau, it's a magic number you got to remember, 30 days late. Anytime you have something that you owe a company, whether it's a credit card, a student loan, a personal loan, an auto loan, a mortgage, if at any point in time you go 30 days late on making that payment, that company, they're going to report that to the credit bureaus, and it's going to show up on your credit card, on your credit report, as a 30-day late notice. It's really important because once that 30-day late notice hits your credit report, guess what? It's staying on there for up to 7 years. So it's super important to make sure you're getting things paid on time. Now, if it goes to 60 or 90 or 120 days late, those are going to have even heavier weightings in pulling down your credit score. So it's super important. Again, it's the biggest chunk of what makes up your credit score, the ability to pay things on time. Why is that important? Well, if you're going to buy a house and that lender is wanting to lend you $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000, of course they're going to want to make sure that you've demonstrated an ability to pay things on time consistently. Second, and the 30% of your weighting on your credit score is going to be your balances, which is how much credit are you using of the available credit. So why would that be important? Well, it shows how responsible you are with the credit that you've been given. If a credit card company tells you they'll give you $10,000 and you turn around and immediately spend $9,500 of those dollars, you're at 95% of your credit used. Well, as a lender or a bank, if they're going to go loan you $200,000 or $300,000 and they see you already owe somebody 95% of the money that they gave you, it's going to make them a little weary. They're going to look at it and wonder like, hey, if push comes to shove and they've got to choose between paying that credit card back with a high balance or paying their mortgage, which one may go late? So again, it's about keeping those balances low. And if you're wondering, are there magic thresholds? Of course there are. I would tell you to always make sure you're below 50% of the balance that you have on any of your revolving debts. That's credit cards, store cards, things like that. 50% below. That's the bare minimum you need to stay below. There's also going to be another big break at below 30% and then finally below 10%. Obviously, if you're able to pay your credit cards and those revolving debts off in full every single month, you're going to look very responsible in the eyes of the creditors, but even more importantly, you're going to save yourself a ton of interest. That's money that you can put back into your pocket to save up for things like that new home or auto that you want to pick up. Next, let's talk about credit history, and not your ability to pay things on time, but how long have you had credit for? This is a hugely important one, and honestly, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make every day. They think to themselves, I've paid this credit card off, I don't have a need for it anymore. Let me go ahead and remove that temptation and cancel that credit card off of my report. Do not do that. It is so important to be able to show not just that you're responsible with your credit, but that you've been able to maintain that responsibility for a long period of time. I'll share with you a personal story that I have for myself. I have a credit card. It's got a very small balance on it. I'll never be able to increase the balance on it because it's one of the first credit cards I've got. It literally sits in a safe. I don't even use it. I don't spend anything on it, but I've had this credit card for over 20 years. It's the oldest piece of credit I have on my account. Would it be easy just to cancel it and not have to worry about it anymore? Sure, it would. But the moment I cancel that, it would hurt my credit history in the eyes of a lender looking to loan me money in the future. So even if it's got a small limit on it and you never use it, throw it in a safe, put it somewhere safe, hold on to it, because having that history, that's a big weighting, 15% of what makes up your credit, and lenders want to know that you've been responsible for a long period of time. We're getting to the end here, right? So the fourth one is going to be the mix of credit. When you think about credit, there's really 4 different kinds of credit that creditors look for when they're trying to decide how responsible you are as a borrower. Number one, and the lowest in the totem pole, is going to be store credit. Your Target credit cards, your furniture credit cards, your jewelry store credit cards, anything like that. You're going to an individual vendor or retailer and you're taking a line of credit out from them to buy a product directly from them. Again, it's the lowest one on the totem pole. It's the easiest one to qualify for. It's kind of where most people start. My first one was with Best Buy several years ago, but that's where people a lot of times get their start. Now the second one is going to be revolving credit cards. Now this is going to be through your actual bank. American Express, Discover, Visa, MasterCard. You're going to have bigger balances, bigger spending power, a little bit higher level of criteria to qualify, but again, it's the second tier on the credit mix totem pole. It's what's going to make sure that you're in a much better space and a safer bet to lend money to. The third one is going to be installment loans. This is where you're going to find personal loans, auto loans, student loans, anything that's going to be on a fixed term, lower interest rate than the other two. So it's a lower interest rate than revolving credit cards or than store credit cards, and it's going to be fixed during the entire period of time, usually somewhere between 5 and 8 years. This is the last step before you get to the highest level, which is mortgage credit. Mortgage credit is the absolute gold standard. If you have a loan for a mortgage, it is the gold standard that creditors are looking for when they decide, hey, this is the safest possible person for us to lend money to. Because typically, the amount you're paying monthly on a mortgage is going to be your single biggest expense every single month. It's your living expense. It's your single biggest expense that you have in your monthly budget. When it's tied to a mortgage with a six-figure balance or higher, that's going to let lenders know definitively that you are a safe bet. Where this really plays in, I'm talking to my first-time home buyers right now, you will find that the moment you buy your first home, your credit score will absolutely skyrocket in the first 6 months of home ownership with on-time payments for those first 6 months. Because again, in the eyes of creditors, you have just crossed over. You have hit the gold standard on lending. You have, in their eyes, become the most qualified type of borrower they're going to find. And I oftentimes see first-time home buyers, they call me up and they say, Josiah, my credit score has gone up by 50 points, 60 points, 70 points in the past 6 months. What happened? And I just simply smile and say, you became a homeowner. You became the most qualified buyer in the eyes of banks. Congratulations. Finally, we have new credit inquiries. It's the smallest weighting, but man, this one can be a thorn in the side if you don't pay attention. This one is quite literally, how often are you out in the market applying for new credit? Why would a lender care about that? Well, if they're looking to lend you a chunk of money, they want to know how many other people you're going and asking for money. Because if you are talking to 10 different banks asking for $10,000 each, and they all 10 give it to you because they don't realize that 9 other people are giving you money, well, now they could be in a situation where you may not be able to pay back all of those lines of credit. So banks are going to want to know, how active are you in the marketplace checking for and applying for credit? Typically, if you apply for new credit, it's going to take 3 years for that inquiry to fall off your credit report. What I commonly tell my borrowers is, make sure that in the last 3 years you've had not more than 4 or 5 credit inquiries to make sure you don't look like you're too desperate in applying for credit. Now, an important thing to remember, again, I'm talking to my first-time home buyers here. When you apply for a mortgage, per the CFPB, you kick off a 45-day window of time where any other mortgage inquiries that you make will not count as additional inquiries. I'm going to say this again. There's a 45-day window from the moment you apply for a mortgage where you can shop around, because they want you, the government wants you to shop around. They want you to get multiple options for your home loan, because again, it's the single biggest purchase you're going to make. You have a 45-day window where you can get quotes, you can shop around, you can talk to different lenders to make sure you get the best rate possible without dinging your credit multiple times. This is so important, and especially why when you do get that first quote, you want to give me a call. As a broker, I'm going to shop you out with all of our different lenders to get you the lowest rate, lowest closing cost possible, save you the most money on that home loan. Let's tie a bow on this whole thing. Went through a ton of information, and I could recap all these points for you on what makes up your credit score, or what makes a good credit score, or, how many Americans don't know their credit score. I'd rather tell you a story. a story about a real borrower that I was able to help out very recently. She was told no by multiple lenders, 3 to be exact, that said, hey, your credit's not in a position, we can't get you a new loan. She just wanted to get a home, a place to build memories, a stability for her family. She got a chance to talk to me. We dug in, we figured out her situation. We found some items on her credit report that we were able to address and attack. And when I say address and attack, we found an account that once paid off, it lifted her credit score by 38 points. That 38-point increase in her credit score by paying off one account, which was under $100, mind you, that lifted her all the way up to a 660 credit score. We're able to get an additional $3,500 in credit from her lender to help with her closing costs and ultimately bring her payment down into a level that fit her budget, put her family under a roof, a place to build memories, a place to have stability, and really, make the best out of the situation. So
Thank you, Josiah. Josiah's information is in the description below. If you have any questions about your credit score, about the process of applying for a loan, or if you're ready and want to apply for a loan, you cannot find a better mortgage broker to walk with you from approval to the closing table when you get the keys to your new home in your hands. If you're considering moving to Georgia, shoot me a text, send me an email, give me a call. All of the information is in the description below. Better yet, schedule a free 15-minute consultation with me so that I could answer all your questions before you begin the process of moving to Georgia. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, have a great day.